But why are we applying rules selectively? There are countries in Africa that hold sham elections. There are countries in Africa that have had presidents since the 90s. Why are these countries allowed to vote at the AUC, and why are other countries not allowed to vote at the AUC? This is not the time that ECOWAS should abandon Burkina Faso. As it has been seen, abandoning Burkina Faso only creates more problem. And if Burkina Faso falls in the hands of the terrorists, then that is a problem for the entire West Africa region. We can simply not speak about the story of Africa without mentioning the kind of struggles that our forefathers underwent. The future of Africa depends on whether we have learned our lessons from the kind of life and the kind of exploitation that went through Africa, the kind of treatment that we got that made us to be who we are today. Africa is suppressed, Africa is underdeveloped because of the systems that were put in place that are still haunting us till date. It is not by coincidence that any African country or any country that is dominated by many Africans across the world, whether within the continent or outside the continent, still faces a lot of struggle. All the systems that were put in place have consecutively suppressed the development of all African or African dominated countries across the world. And a few people have taken up the task to try as much as possible to emancipate Africans from the kind of struggle that we are living. One of that person is Ibrahim Traore. Now, Ibrahim Traore was born in Burkina Faso, of course, and was a very silent boy, but a person who was focused and a person who was very bright. Ibrahim Traore will go to study geology and then will join the army. In his life in the army, Ibrahim Traore went to Morocco. And in Morocco, he learned about air defense and then came back to Burkina Faso. Then was sent to Mali under the UN to try and fight for peace in Mali. Ibrahim Traore came back to Burkina Faso and tried to defend his own country from the insurgencies that were taking place, mostly the Islamic or radical Islamic insurgencies that have been taking place in Burkina Faso. He saw the problem that Burkina Faso has gone through. For a long time, Burkina Faso has had security issues in terms of insurgencies that have almost overpowered the government of the day. And this was happening because of corruption. And corruption is a malice that is really finishing the entire continent of Africa. In democracies and in countries that do not subscribe to democracy, corruption is still the main problem that is facing Africa. And Ibrahim Traore was not blind to this. He saw it all happen mostly in the security sector. The elected leaders were taking that money, were plundering money and not giving enough support to the military that were taking care and defending the country. And that problem had to be sorted out. Well, whether you might ascribe to it or not, the military took charge of the country by supporting Paul Henry Damiba to be the next president, after ousting the democratically elected president. To me, that was a sign of the people trying to take charge of their country and fighting to return the country back to normalcy, because at that time, democracy had failed. And when Paul Henry Damiba took office, he started doing the same things that his predecessor did by squandering the money, by taking advantage of the resources for his own personal use and enabling corruption. Something had to be done, of course. And that is when Ibrahim Traore took over office through a coup as well. And that was a sign that the public was not entrusting the leadership of Paul Henry Damiba and wanted some changes. Well, Ibrahim Traore took power, and from that moment, a lot changed in Burkina Faso. He has implemented measures that have seen Burkina Faso being recognized, that have seen his leadership being recognized world over. It is not just by coincidence that you'll find that Ibrahim Traore is recognized across Africa and across the world as being a leader that is taking Burkina Faso to the next level. Of course, there are a lot of challenges along the way, but What is happening in Burkina Faso is something that should be emulated, and we should learn from Burkina Faso. We should learn about what governance is, and we should learn about management of public resources from Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso has taken charge of the national resources of the country. They realized that there is a problem. That is, Ibrahim Traore realized that there is a problem, that a lot of minerals that are being mined from Burkina Faso are going to France. They are going to outside nations because someone somewhere else is taking advantage of the insecurity in the country. And he had to stop that. The first thing he did when he entered into power is to make sure that he has nationalized the gold mines of that country, to make sure that when gold is mined in Burkina Faso, it undergoes the entire process in Burkina Faso to the last finishing process, so that they can get more money and sell at a higher price, and as well employ more people in that country. Many countries around Africa still have not recognized or realized or actualized that kind of a problem. Here in Kenya, you'll find that we have our tea, we have our coffee, and we are still selling it as raw material so that you can be sold back that tea as finished product. That is taking away our jobs. It is taking away the money, the revenue that Kenya could have gotten out of selling quality finished products. And it's not that it cannot be done here in Kenya. It can well be done here in Kenya. And that is a story that is being replicated across Africa, of countries that are selling minerals in terms of raw products so that we can buy as finished products. So regardless of how you look at Ibrahim Traore, many people still call him a cool leader, but I see him as a leader that is trying to show other Africans how to lead. And when it comes to the question of the AU, it is very important that the AU re-strategize or restructure how it looks at different situations here in Africa. The nation of Burkina Faso is struggling in terms of security. It needs help. This is not the time that ECOWAS should abandon Burkina Faso. As it has been seen, abandoning Burkina Faso only creates more problem. And if Burkina Faso falls in the hands of the terrorists, then that is a problem for the entire West Africa region. There is a need to assist Burkina Faso in the time or in the hour of need so that it can stand on its feet. Then we can talk about other things later. But there is no need for African countries to keep holding on ideologies that are failing in Africa so that they can be good to their masters out there. We know that there is a lot of influence, and democracy is a very, very good way of governance that is giving power to the people. We're not saying that we should not apply democracy, but why are we applying the kind of rules selectively? There are countries in Africa that hold sham elections. There are countries in Africa that have had presidents since the 90s. Why are these countries allowed to vote at the AUC, and why are other countries not allowed to vote at the AUC? We need representation for the entire African continent. We need representation for West Africa, representation for South, East, Central, and North. And all issues have to be looked at in a very practical manner so that we can solve the issues. Countries like Burkina Faso are struggling to make sure that they have the kind of living that all Africans have. Therefore, it is time for the AU, it is time for all Africans to embrace and learn lessons from Burkina Faso so that we can apply that kind of a governance in Africa, so that we can apply that kind of leadership in Africa.